Donald Trump's victory, thousands of Americans are planning to pack their bags and move abroad. Google search data shows U.S. citizens are actively researching how to move to Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. Among these people could be Hollywood celebrities like Sharon Stone, Cher, and Jimmy Kimmel.
Lebanese officials say at least 40 people are dead after Israeli airstrikes in eastern Lebanon. Israel Defense Forces say its airstrikes were, quote, limited and localized, claiming that all targets were linked to the Iran-backed Hezbollah militant group.
Depressed? Powerless? Well, you're not alone. A growing number of people all over the world are dealing with mental health problems. In fact, since 1990, mental disorders have increased globally by 48%. Besides the direct health and social impact it has on individuals, this increase in mental health disorders is costing the global economy almost $1 trillion.
Being middle class, I feel like you're really just in between a rock and a hard place.
4 in 10 Americans say that money affects them negatively and the state of their mental health.
The consumers that have a whole lot of debt really are struggling to survive.
Welcome back to the Truth Be Told Project podcast. Today we're digging into a question that most of us, if we're honest, have wrestled with. How do we find faith when fear is knocking on the door? It's easy just to say, have faith. But what does that look like when everything feels uncertain? I want you to do something for me right fast. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff looking out at a thick fog. You know there's a path on the other side, but you can't see it. That's where a lot of us stand in life. We're facing something unknown, and that what we're facing paralyzes us with fear. Today, we're going to talk about how to take that next step, even when you can't see what lies ahead. I want to share a story with you. I want to share a story of a man named Mark. Mark is a young Christian man who had everything mapped out. He had a career, a relationship, financial plans, then life did like it does all the time. It took a detour. He lost his job, his relationship ended, and suddenly his roadmap vanished. Mark began questioning everything. He questioned his faith, he questioned his worth, and even God's plan for him. Have you ever felt like everything you built just crumbled in front of you? Mark's story might sound familiar because, let's face it, we all face seasons where life certainties disappear. But here's where God's word speaks to us. In Isaiah 41:10, God tells us, "Do not fear, for I am with you. I will strengthen you and help you." Now, this isn't just a nice phrase, it's a promise. And sometimes the only thing that holds us together is that promise. Isaiah 41:10 offers profound reassurance and guidance, especially in times of fear and uncertainty. Here are 3 principles we can draw from Isaiah 41:10. The first principle we could draw is God's presence brings peace. The verse opens with, "Do not fear, for I am with you." This principle emphasizes that God's presence is constant, and knowing He's near can provide peace even in the midst of life's inevitables. When we remember that we're not alone, it can calm our anxieties and help us face challenges with confidence. We also have to remember that this is a person that has created a universe, or the universe. This is a God that knows all and sees all. He knows the thought that you're about to think, what you're thinking, that you should subscribe if you haven't done so already. We have to remember that God knows all and He sees all. A lot of us would love to be associated with a powerful individual or a powerful individual's family. The most powerful person in the world that you could think of, I don't care if it's the President of the United States or any other part of government, that person could never equate. That person's power could never equate with the power of the living God. The second promise that we could get from Isaiah 41:10 is that God provides strength in weakness. It says, I will strengthen you. This reminds us that God equips us with the strength we need. I know sometimes it feels like you don't have strength and you're struggling with it, but these are the times when God provides strength. This principle teaches that we're not expected to navigate life solely with our own abilities. God offers his strength to help us endure and overcome difficult situations. You have to trust him. You have to trust God. The third principle that we could get from Isaiah 41:10 is that God is faithful to support and uphold you. When we say God is faithful, I used to often wonder, like, what does that mean that God is faithful? It means that God is completely trustworthy. God is consistent, and God is steadfast in his character, his promises, and his actions. God's faithfulness is one of his defining attributes, meaning he is always reliable. Faithfulness is one of his defining attributes, meaning he is always reliable, true to his word, and will never abandon his people. I know at times it could feel as if you're by yourself, but you have to trust God. God is faithful. Here are a few aspects of what it means to say that God is faithful. God is consistent in his promises. God's faithfulness means that when he makes a promise, he keeps it. Scriptures like Numbers 23:19 affirm that God is not a man that he should lie, nor a son of man that he should change his mind. We can trust that what God says is unchanging and reliable, which brings comfort because his promises are not conditioned on circumstances. His faithfulness is not conditioned on our faithfulness. The second aspect of God's faithfulness is his unwavering presence. His unwavering presence assures us that he is with us no matter what we face, even in our struggles, even in our doubts, or when we stray. God doesn't leave or turn his back on us. Verses like Deuteronomy 31:6 remind us that the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. To say that God is faithful means that God is unchanging in his love and mercy. Because of his faithfulness, God continually shows us mercy and love regardless of our failures, regardless of our shortcomings. Lamentations 3:22 through 23 reflects this beautifully, saying, his mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness, God. That scripture gives me chills. It's a reminder that we can always return to him, knowing his love and his forgiveness are constant. God is faithful. He is faithful. In essence, God is faithful means that he is the ultimate anchor in a changing, unreliable world. His faithfulness gives us a foundation for hope, security, and peace because he remains true to his word, his character, and his relationship with us. The promise, I will uphold you with my righteous right hand, reflects God's unwavering support. This principle shows us that God not only provides strength, but also stability, upholding us when we feel as though we're about to fall. Sometimes it's just a feeling that we're about to fall. It's a reminder of his commitment to guide and protect us, especially during our most vulnerable moments. Also want to remind you that when you're unfaithful to him, he still remains faithful to you. 2 Timothy 2:13 says that if we are unfaithful, he remains faithful, since he cannot deny himself. Faithful is what God is God's very essence. It's his very being to be faithful. So your disobedience does not shake his faithfulness. However, this should drive us to be more faithful. This should create in us a desire to be more faithful. It should not create in us a desire to sin more or live in a way that we want to live. This should inspire. God's faithfulness should inspire your faithfulness. This promise should make you make a deeper commitment to God. But here's something I want you to think about. What if, just think about it, what if God allows our plans to fall apart because his plans are better? It's a challenging thought, right? We're afraid of losing control. But what if the only way to find true faith is to let go? Think about Peter walking on water. Fear crept in and he doubted, yet Jesus didn't let him drown. In our lives, fear often makes us look away from God's promises. But just like Peter, the key is to keep our eyes fixed focused on Jesus and not the waves and the instability that goes on around us. So when we're in pain, we tend to isolate ourselves, thinking no one else understands. But let's look at Elijah. After his greatest victory, he fled, feeling utterly alone and fearful. Yet God met him in that loneliness. Isaiah 41:10 offers profound reassurance and guidance, especially in times of fear and uncertainty. For those of us wrestling with financial anxiety, Jesus reminds us in Matthew 6:25-34, not to worry about tomorrow. But now that doesn't mean we sit back and do nothing, but it's an invitation to trust God's provision as we work toward our goals. And in relationships, especially when we're seeking clarity on who to let into our lives, Proverbs 3:5-6 tells us to lean not on our own understanding, but acknowledge Him and He will direct our paths. Imagine how freeing it could be to let God guide instead of worrying about getting every detail right. So here's what I want you to do this week. Identify one area where you're holding on tightly in fear. Maybe it's a relationship, a career move, or even your future plans. I want you to take one action that reflects faith instead of fear. Pray over it, take a step forward, and watch how God meets you right there. Thanks for joining me on the Truth Be Told Project podcast. Remember, faith isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward despite it. You're not alone in this journey. Until next time, live by your intended design, God's design, and not by default. Peace.